against them at SoFi. They're just always they're a big club, one of the biggest club there in Mexico, and they're huge following, huge traveling and/or local support for the Chivas brand. So we know tomorrow, one of the great things about it is, and I say this often through the course of an MLS season, there's only so many days and so many games where you're going to pack the stadium and it's going to feel like a really energetic environment. There might be more fans from Chivas than for us, but I don't think, to me, for tomorrow, that doesn't matter. What matters is that there is energy, the game feels important, that the group responds to the energy in the stadium. We're gonna have an opposition that's playing for their life in this tournament, so they're going to be super motivated, which means we have to be super motivated. And as we've talked about this tournament, we've got to continue to be detail oriented to make sure that we play every play of every game the right way, because we're starting to look at, between this tournament and the playoffs eventually, is just knockout soccer. And so tomorrow's one of those where the opposition is in a knockout situation, which means we have to be thinking knockout situation, just because that's the level of importance for them. So I look forward to it. I think it's going to demand a lot of our guys, and we'll see how the group responds to the day tomorrow, but I'm looking forward to it.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Greg, the return of Javier Hernandez to Dignity, how the group has been talking about, or you as a coach, how you been taking the upcoming match, having Javier in the pitch?
Yeah, it's just, Javi he's a gamer. This is going to be a big game both for their club, again, to advance, for him coming back to LA with an opportunity to play. I've been watching some of their games lately. The sharpness of his movement, his work rate on the defensive side, I think, has been really strong for them, because they're a team that likes to press. But we know his movement around the box, his movement in the final third is just really smart and clever. We have to always be mindful of him pulling away and setting up behind players in their back and their blind spot, and then showing up into positions. And we just always have to know where he is specifically in and around the box, because that's the most difficult place to deal with him. That's why he's a great goal scorer. So we've got to be communicating to one another, again, depending on where his movements are and where he's setting up. We've got to try to decrease the amount of service that he gets in the box. But we know that he's an outstanding player, and I'm sure he's going to be motivated and doing the work that he needs to tomorrow to try to get himself on the board and get his team the win so that they can advance. So we're just going to have to be on our game.
That helps you as a coach, that you know him and you have him in practices that help you, like how you can neutralize him?
Well, I think it gives you, scouting. We have, because we've worked with him for so long, and he's been a part of our group for the last several years. You have a sense of tendencies and what they like and what Javi wants to do and where he wants to score his goals, things like that. You get a sense of it, but the thing about great players and great goal scorers is they actually adapt to the game. They don't necessarily do the same thing all the time. And that's why I say Javi really understands the game inside the game, and he'll see, whatever we're doing defensively, and he'll adapt to that. And if we change, he'll adapt to that. And that's what makes him a guy who is just always scoring goals, is because he's able to find solutions, find pockets, find space inside the games. And that's where we have to keep communicating and making sure that our awareness is really high, and that we're sharp in those areas, because he's a guy who he'll create and use spaces as good as anyone that we'll have seen over the course of the season.
Lastly, for me, this is the second edition of the Leagues Cup. Do you think at this point this tournament is more beneficial for the MLS teams instead of the Mexican teams?
I think I think the timing of this is what our MLS teams used to say about Champions League as well, right? The timing of this probably benefits in many ways the form of the MLS teams. We are now 20-something games into our season. They're 4 games into their season. We should be, in theory, in more mid-season form than they are. We used to say that always, as MLS teams inside of the CONCACAF tournament. We were just coming back from a long off season, and always felt like the Mexican teams were more prepared physically and more sharper, because they had 4, 5, 6 games in their league. So, so I think from that perspective, it does play into the favor of the MLS teams. The second part, which you can never really calculate what it is, but it's always they're playing in our home stadiums and they're playing away, and so there's always a challenge inside of being the away team. You know, I think in MLS it's probably, if not the hardest league, one of the hardest leagues in the world to play on the road, just because the distance traveled, the different environments that you have to play in, from altitude to heat to cold to all those different things. You know, as I said, the distance of travel. So I think all those also play into the challenges for the teams that come up from Mexico, as they're living in hotels, their travel is going to be a little greater. There's always you know, challenges inside of that. I like the tournament. I think it's I love that we're able to play, you know, teams from a different league that are of a high caliber. I think that's great for our league, great for the exposure. I think it's great for both leagues to kind of raise the stakes for each of our league. When to do it and how to do it so that it creates the most even and the best platform, I think is still something that we're always going to be seeking. If at any point our seasons are on a similar timeline, there might be a better like time period that makes it a little bit more, and I'm not sure how you cross over the travel stuff. Somebody's going to be traveling a lot because between our countries there's a lot of territory to cover, but I do like the event. I just trying to figure out when is the best time to do it is always, I think, a little bit tricky.